Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress. I'm a life and parenting coach. And on today's episode, I want to go through the attachment basics. I want to walk you through the 4 things that we do to create a secure attachment for our kids. And I wanted to piggyback on last week's conversation with Dr. Sarah Bren because we talked about attachment. And I really loved our conversation. We talked about repair. We talked about how attachment is hardwired in us and that really is secure attachment is sort of inevitable unless we do actively do things to mess it up. But I still felt like maybe you might have listened to that episode and kind of been like, okay, but how do I make sure that I create secure attachment with my kids? What do I need to do? So I wanted to walk you through the different, the 3 things essentially that kids need in order to feel secure, and security is the 4th result. A lot of the things that I know about attachment come from Dr. Dan Siegel's work. One of the books that I read early on in my parenting journey that made a huge impact on me, particularly in this topic around attachment, is called Parenting from the Inside Out. And it is a book that Dr. Siegel wrote with Mary Hartzell. And they talk in the book a lot about John Bowlby's work, which is a lot about where all the things that you learn about attachment all centered around Mary Main and John Bowlby and their research around attachment in parent-child caregiving environments. So I wanted to kind of simplify all of that and give you sort of the 4 S's, which we did talk about in last week's episode, but I wanted to give more airtime to kind of break them down. And so when you want to have a child who has a secure attachment with their parent, and the reason why we want to do this is because when you have a secure attachment to your parent, that means that you feel pretty safe in the world. You're not living in a hypervigilant, heightened cortisol, impulse reactivity headspace. Your mental health is pretty good, right? So the more securely attached a kid is, typically it predicts that they'll have a strong self-esteem, they'll have self-reliance, they'll be independent, they'll feel less anxious and less depressed. So obviously we all want our kids to create this secure attachment. And some of us just feel a little bit like maybe we weren't parented this way. Maybe we did not get our emotional and physical needs met as kids. And we're in that reparenting process. We're in that insecurity in ourselves where we kind of have that hypervigilance and we're like, we don't want to transfer that to our kids. So how do we avoid doing that? This is the episode for you to break that down and make sure you're kind of hitting the high marks. Now, remember, Dr. Bren said it's a robust system. It's not easily broken. So I don't want you to go into this episode being really nervous because you probably have secure attachment with your kids. Now, I want to share something that I've not really shared before on the podcast, this specifically. But when I'm an adoptive parent, which I don't really talk about that often, but my kids were both in Russian orphanages and we adopted them from Russia around the age of 11 months. So for their first 12 months of life, they did not receive a reliable caregiver that met their emotional and physical needs in a predictable, reliable fashion. They had different caregivers. Those caregivers were pretty ambivalent towards their needs, and their needs were not met in an attuned way. So if they were hungry and crying, they weren't necessarily fed at that time because the caregivers were on a schedule or whatever. And so they might cry because they're hungry or wet or, uncomfortable for whatever reason. And there isn't an attuned caregiver coming to either meet that need or soothe them if they aren't going to get that need met. Like, for example, if you're putting your infant on a schedule for nursing or for feeding them, right? Or sleeping schedule, something like that. I'm not suggesting that if you don't meet their need, they're going to become insecurely attached. It's not just about meeting needs. It's also about getting soothed when those needs can't get met because of a boundary or a limit. So for my kids, they came to me in an insecure attachment. They did not have had an experience of being securely attached. So we had to work at repairing their attachment. So I feel like I can really offer to you a lot of hope that attachment is hardwired in our kids. They want to connect with us and they want to feel safe and secure with their caregiver. And for the most part, most parents, unless there's really mental illness or some kind of tragic thing that happens, most of us do create secure attachment in infancy because we're hardwired also to, protect our kids, to take care of them and to make sure that they get fed and get changed and are the right temperature and all of those things and sleep well and all those things. So for the most part, you're doing it right. That's what I want to say. And if you have, for whatever reason, not been doing these things, or you feel like you could improve your attachment with your children, you want to make it stronger or change the quality of it, then going back and doing these 3 things will help you create a secure attachment. So let's get into what those are. So it's kind of the 4 S's. A lot of people will talk about the 4 S's in attachment, and those are feeling safe, seen, soothed, creates secure. So when your child feels safe, when they feel seen, when they feel soothed, that results in security. So that is really what we're talking about when we talk about a secure attachment. Is we're talking about a person who has an overall feeling that their caregiver is safe for them, will see when they have issues or needs or problems, and that caregiver will soothe them. So their caregiver is present, available, and meets their needs. Meeting your needs does not mean meeting your whims. Like I said, sometimes your little kid doesn't really understand their needs. Like they need to sleep, right? But they might think they need to play. And so we have to meet their actual need and soothe them when they are feeling overwhelmed or frustrated or whatever, even with our own boundary. So let me break the S's down. So what does safety mean? Okay, it means that your child is physically and emotionally secure in their environment. They feel protected from harm and they don't experience fear or threat from you. So we need to recognize that our job is to be the safe person for our children, not the thing that scares them, right? We are committed to not being the source of fear. Now, this is really the crux of connected parenting and parenting through connection that you've been learning on this podcast and all the other parent educators that you follow, is that we're not using fear and threat to manipulate our children in order to get them to behave. We're not manipulating their sense of safety, emotional connectedness with us, or physical safety. We're not manipulating them by triggering fear in order to get compliance. So if you think about spanking a kid to get them to do what you want them to do, you are the source of fear. You are the threat. And then you are using spanking to hurt your children and to manipulate them to listen to you. So unfortunately, what that does is it activates the nervous system and makes the child feel pretty confused, right? Because you're supposed to be the source of safety, but yet you're the source of fear. That can create an insecurity within the child, or at least some confusion. Like, how can I trust this caregiver if this caregiver also flicks my leg when I'm crying? So for safety, the first thing we want to do is commit to just not hurting our children. Helping our kids feel safe in our home, creating that safety and that well-being. Now, obviously, there are going to be times when we are a source of fear, when we do rage at our kids, when we get angry, when we get upset, maybe we are physical. That is why repair is so important, because, of course, it's nice, but it also helps establish secure attachment, so the child's not thinking, oh my God, it's so dangerous around here. My parent is unpredictable and unreliable. We want them to know, no. What happened there, that was on my watch. That was my fault. I did not control myself. I did not take good care of myself, and I ended up hurting you. And that was not okay. You did not deserve that. That's not okay. And I'm going to keep working on it. So we talked a lot about repair in last week's episode, and I have quite a few episodes on repair that you can go back and listen to. So repair is great because it helps emotional connectedness, but really it's important because it makes our children feel safe. Okay, the second S is seen. To be seen is to have a caregiver who perceives and understands a child's emotional experience, that you see your child as an individual, right? You become curious about them. You think of them as a fully whole individual from birth that is revealing themselves to you, what they want, who they are, what they need. All of us, we have the need for safety, for security. We want to feel safe. We don't want to feel attacked. And we also have the need for authenticity. So I've talked about this before on like the basic needs of kids, right? They need to be attached to us, feeling safe, but they also need to be able to express themselves. And sometimes in attachment, what we do is we kind of make our attachment or our connection to our kids conditional based on how they behave or how we perceive them. So we don't really sometimes want them to be themselves. We want them to be mini us's or just like these other kids or whatever it is. And when we are able to be curious about who our actual child is and observing them and taking delight in them and looking at who they are and how they're revealing themselves to us, that is a very important part about attachment, is that our children feel seen. So this is a lot when you work with me or you study from me, we talk a lot about connection, right? And really being able to understand who our children are and being really curious about who they are. So this is it's like you have your kid who needs to feel safe, right? That their physical needs are going to get met. Their diapers are going to get changed. Their bellies are going to get filled. And then they also have this other kind of emotional need that you will see them for who they are and love and accept them. So it's like, I'm safe as I am. I'm safe in who I am. I am seen and I'm still okay. So getting to know your kids, creating space for those conversations, being interested in them, learning about what they're interested in. And when they offer ideas to you, not to immediately say, don't say that, don't think that, that's not okay. What are you talking about? That's not how we act in this family. Instead of snap judgments like that, getting a little bit curious, like, tell me more. Why do you think that's true? What's that about for you? So these scene strategies help our children develop their social ability, their self-esteem, their belief about themselves. When we talk about wanting to have a kid who grows up and has a positive self-esteem and is self-reliant, they need to believe that they're good, right? That they are interesting, that they have something to offer the world. And we do that by giving them that ability to see them, that we see who they are. The third S is soothed. So your children are going to have times when they are distressed, right? When they have complex feelings, complex situations. And what a child is looking for is comfort and support. They want to know that you can help them with their big feelings, that you can help them understand the world and soothe them when things are hard. Now, soothing is not solving. I don't need to solve every problem for my kid and pave the way for them to not have discomfort. When you create a what would be a too comfortable life for your children, they don't get the opportunity to be resilient, to actually overcome obstacles. But what our kids look for is when they are experiencing obstacles, they kind of need someone who can be present with them, who can offer some empathy, who can problem solve with them if they're interested in that. By coming alongside and working with your child to develop some strategies to calm themselves if they're dysregulated, to problem solve a friendship, to work through, overwhelm when they're doing their homework and they're starting to get mad and perfectionism takes over and they're slamming in their paper and ripping up their paper and all of that. When we come to our kid and we say, listen, you're safe right now. I'm not angry with you. You're not in trouble. I'm looking at you struggling with this homework, and I wonder if you feel really overwhelmed by it. That makes sense. So how about we break it into a couple of questions at a time, or how about we work on it for 5 more minutes and then we take a break. So you're soothing them, you're seeing their strategies, their struggle, you're offering them some support, and you're not getting angry and trying to shame them into being a better student. That is kind of continuously reinforcing that security within themselves. If you think about the strategies that I'm teaching you with connect, limit, set, correct, that's what these all are supposed to do, is to create that secure attachment, to have boundaries that your kids butt up against, to have consequences that are uncomfortable. And all along the way, they are receiving your compassion. They are receiving your ability to see them, your curiosity. You're narrating their struggles. You're narrating what's happening for them. You're helping them identify their feelings. You're helping them problem solve those emotions. You are securely attached to them, no matter how they act, no matter how they show up in the world, no matter what they say or do. The attachment to you, the unconditional love and acceptance that you have for them is never at risk. It cannot be broken. So when you have that approach, your kids are also going to have that approach for themselves. When you are communicating, hey, you're safe here, I see you, and I'm here to help. Your child will then have that secure base. And you want to do this, obviously, when they're infant, you do this, right? And you create that secure attachment pretty easily because those needs, you kind of know how to meet those. And, they're a baby, right? So you have like a lot of grace for a baby. But then like 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, you're like, enough, get over it. Come on, kid. I already told you. We can start to erode that connection because of our own irritation. So doubling down on these values of I will do no harm. I'm going to create safety in this family, emotionally and physically safe. I'm going to see my kids as individuals going through an emotional experience, and I'm going to come alongside and I'm going to soothe and support and help them. All of that creates that secure base, that secure attachment that you so are longing for. Now, if it becomes where you've been not being able to be safe with your kids, either emotionally or physically, maybe you aren't hurting them, but you sometimes insult them, you blame them, you critical. I'm not judging. I've heard it all. You are also normal if you show up that way sometimes. Do not hurt yourself by being mean to yourself. Just own you were dysregulated, you were overwhelmed, you were struggling in that moment, go back and create repair. You always have the chance in every parenting relationship to repair and to start over and to go back and reestablish that safe relationship. Because what is amazing is that when you have this modeled for you, when you feel safe, no matter what, when you feel seen, no matter what, and you feel soothed, I like the word support, when you feel supported, no matter what, you will be emotionally healthy. Like you create inside of you that feeling of, I'm okay, it's okay, we're going to be okay. That feeling of being okay, that's what security is. It's funny, a couple years ago, every year I make up a theme for my year. And a couple years ago, my theme was internalized security. And it really was me learning to reparent myself because along the way in my life, I wasn't always safe. I wasn't always seen, and I wasn't always soothed. And so I had an insecure attachment to the world, really. I began to have, like Dr. Bren said, like a blueprint. I had this perspective on the world that the world wasn't safe, that people were out to get me, that I was being judged, that I was always in danger of being rejected or hurt or emotionally abandoned or physically hurt or in pain in some way. And so my insecure attachments kind of bled into my adult life. And over the course of the last 15 years, longer, like ever since I was like 20, I have been working on healing all of my childhood wounds. And it has been very difficult, to be honest, but having my children and seeing that sometimes I was showing up unsafe for them, I was not validating their feelings and I was not soothing them, right? So I wasn't being safe. I wasn't I wasn't letting them be seen, and I wasn't soothing. And that I really was scared that I was going to create trauma for them. And so I had to double down on healing myself. And in many ways, what that has looked like is doing this work that we're talking about today, these 4 S's or these 3 S's to create the final S, which is security. I've had to go through and teach myself that I am safe, that the world is not out to get me, that I've had to become that safe base. When I talked about internal family systems and that concept of the self, that self energy within me is the thing that I go to rely on now. That self energy that's within you is what your children go to and rely on as they get older. You can model that internalized security for your kids, and they can launch into the world feeling safe and seen and knowing how to take care of themselves, knowing how to soothe themselves without drugs and alcohol and sex and shopping and gambling addictions and scrolling on Instagram and all the stupid stuff that we all do to soothe ourselves. It's like, I want to raise kids, and I did raise kids who do know that they're safe and do know what it means to be seen and do know how to soothe themselves in healthy ways. Do they always choose those ways? No. But they have a toolkit because of all the work I do. So it's kind of like, as I've reparented myself and healed my own insecure attachment, I have created what is called in psychology earned secure attachment. Like, I've had to fight for it. I have earned it. I have it now. And now I can just give that to my children as an inheritance. That's what it means to be a cycle breaker or heal from trauma and not pass that trauma on, is you're in real time healing yourself and working through your own insecure attachments and recognizing, it's all about awareness, like recognizing when you are in a negative strategy where you're emotionally checking out, or you're lashing out, or you're defensive, or you're blaming, or you're taking on too much, or your perfectionism's getting out of control, when you see those behaviors, recognize you don't feel safe. And you can go back and reteach yourself how to be safe. You can be safe in the school environment wherever your kids are. You can be safe in your marriage. You can be safe in your job. That maybe, just maybe, the world is not out to get you. Just maybe you're good enough exactly as you are. Just maybe you can get soothed by the people who love you and you can love yourself. So this episode is all about secure attachment and the attachment basics so that your kids can get that secure attachment. But ultimately, mama, it is also for you that you get to find that secure, internalized security, that secure attachment within yourself. You get to be the parent that you always wanted or wished for or needed. You get to be that for yourself now. And I know you're doing the work. I see you. If I work with you, I see you, mamas, on the calls that we do and on the sessions. And I know you're working on it. And for those of you who just listen to this podcast, I know by listening to this, you're doing it. And you can maybe relax a little bit and be like, maybe I've done a lot and I can kind of relax just a little bit and enjoy the secure attachment that I have with my kids. So that's my wish for you this week. That's what I'm thinking about as you reparent yourself and you parent your kids, that you feel so safe and seen and soothed exactly as you are today. All right, mama, I will talk to you next time. Hey mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do two things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that, again, at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies, just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.